Jainism, a complete deep dive. Ahimsa, Anekantavada, Aparigraha, the most radical ethics in human history. Ahimsa, non-violence toward every living being including microorganisms. Anekantavada, no single perspective captures the whole of reality, the most sophisticated philosophical principle in any tradition anywhere. Aparigraha, non-possession, the radical liberation from wanting. The Tirthankaras who walked to liberation before us, leaving the path marked. Micchami Dukkadam, may all the evil I have done be undone. Personal reading series Haligricity May 2026 IUQ Productions. Contents. Introduction, the oldest living ethical tradition. Part 1, Jain origins and history. Part 2, the Tirthankaras, the 24 fort makers. Part 3, Mahavir, the 24th and final Tirthankar. Part 4, Jain metaphysics, the nature of reality. Part 5, the Jiva and the Ajiva, soul and non-soul. Part 6, Karma in Jain understanding, the most complete karma theory. Part 7, Ahimsa, the foundational cosmological principle. Part 8, the hierarchy of sentient beings. Part 9, Anekantavada, the many-sidedness of truth. Part 10, Sadvada, the sevenfold logic. Part 11, Naivara, partial perspectives. Part 12, Aparigraha, non-possession as liberation. Part 13, the five great woes. Part 14, the three jewels, Samet Janana, Darshana, Charitra. Part 15, the Digambara and Shvetambara traditions. Part 16, the 14 Gunasanas, stages of spiritual development. Part 17, the Jain monk and nun, life of total commitment. Part 18, the Jain layperson, the Anuvrats. Part 19, Salekhna, the sacred fast unto death. Part 20, Paryushan and Samvatsari, the annual sacred period. Part 21, Jain sacred texts, the Agamas. Part 22, Jain cosmology, the universe without creator. Part 23, Jain sacred art and architecture. Part 24, Gandhi and Jain influence on the world. Part 25, the Haligricity lens, Anekantavada and Ahimsa as practice. Introduction. Jainism is among the oldest living religious traditions in the world, an independent Indian tradition with roots that predate the historical Mahavir, contemporaneous with early Buddhism and the Vedic tradition in the same cultural milieu, but completely distinct from both. Its foundational insights represent the most radical, most consistent, and most philosophically sophisticated application of the ethical recognition of the sanctity of life available in any tradition anywhere. The three foundational Jain principles, Ahimsa, Anekantavada, and Aparigraha, are not merely ethical recommendations. They are the practical applications of the most complete ancient account of the nature of consciousness, karma, and liberation that any tradition has produced. This guide covers all of it: the metaphysics, the cosmology, the karma theory, the philosophical logic of Anekantavada, the specific practices of the monks and laypersons, the sacred texts, and the tradition's extraordinary influence on the wider world through Gandhi and the global nonviolent resistance tradition. Jain origins and history. Jainism's origins extend further back than the historical Mahavir. The tradition holds that in each cosmic half-cycle, 24 Tirthankars appear and teach the eternal path. Rishabhanatha, the first Tirthankar of the current cycle, is placed at the very beginning of the current cosmic era, an era so vast that its scale is measured in epochs rather than centuries. The historical record. The 23rd Tirthankar, Parshvanatha, is the earliest Tirthankar for whom there is possible archaeological and textual evidence. He is credited with establishing the four major woes. Mahavir added the fifth and systematized the teaching. The existence of Parshvanatha as a pre-Mahavir Jain teacher is acknowledged by Buddhist texts, making Jainism one of the few traditions that has pre-founder documentation from an independent source. Jainism versus Hinduism and Buddhism, the key differences. Independent tradition. Jainism is not a reform movement within Hinduism. It has its own cosmology, its own understanding of the soul, its own karma theory, and its own path to liberation that are structurally different from both Hindu and Buddhist frameworks. Versus Hinduism, Jainism rejects the authority of the Vedas, the caste system, and the existence of a creator god. The Jain universe is eternal and uncreated. There is no Brahma, no Vishnu, no Shiva as cosmic governors. The liberated souls are not God, they are beyond all relationship with the material universe. Versus Buddhism, both traditions emphasize non-violence and the unreality of a permanent self, but Jainism, unlike Buddhism, holds that the soul is real and is permanent. The Jain path is more ascetic than most Buddhist paths. The tradition of sky-clad monasticism has no Buddhist parallel. The shared milieu, Jainism, Buddhism, and the Upanishadic tradition all emerged from the same 8th century BCE Indian intellectual ferment, the period when Indian thought challenged the dominant Vedic ritualism with more interior, more ethical, and more experiential approaches to the sacred. Jain metaphysics, the nature of reality. Jain metaphysics is among the most complete and most rigorously consistent in any philosophical tradition. Unlike traditions that leave fundamental metaphysical questions vague or mysterious, Jainism provides precise, detailed, internally consistent accounts of the nature of souls, matter, space, time, and the principles that govern their interactions. The 6 dravyas. Jain metaphysics identifies 6 fundamental substances that constitute the whole of reality: jiva, the living principle, individual, eternal, self-luminous consciousness. Each jiva is unique, uncreated, and in its pure state omniscient and infinitely capable. Pudgala, the non-conscious physical substance, composed of atoms, capable of forming complex structures, the material through which karma operates on the soul. Akasha, the medium in which all other substances exist. Kala, the serial process of change. Jain cosmology has an elaborate account of time as both infinite and cyclically structured. Dharma, not the ethical principle but a specific metaphysical substance, the medium that enables movement. Without the dharma dravya, nothing could move. Adharma, the complementary substance, the medium that enables rest. Without adharma dravya, nothing could stop. The significance, the dharma-adharma dravyas are unique to Jain metaphysics. No other tradition has proposed specific metaphysical substances to explain the conditions of movement and rest. This specificity and completeness is characteristic of the Jain metaphysical project. The jiva and the ajiva, soul and non-soul, the fundamental division. The most fundamental distinction in Jain metaphysics is between jiva and ajiva. Every possible entity in the universe falls into one of these 2 categories. Nothing is both and nothing is neither. The jiva, Jain soul theory. Infinite number. The universe contains an infinite number of individual jivas, each one unique, each one eternal, each one in the process of working out its own liberation. Inherent qualities. Every jiva, in its pure unobstructed state, possesses 4 infinite qualities: infinite knowledge, infinite perception, infinite bliss, and infinite power. Karma obscuration. These infinite qualities are obscured in all non-liberated jivas by the accumulation of karma, the specific karmic matter that adheres to the soul through its actions and determines its specific capacities in each life. The equality of all jivas, every jiva, from the soul of a microorganism to the soul of a human being to the souls of the Tirthankaras, is fundamentally equal in its intrinsic nature. The differences between beings are the differences in their karmic accumulation, not in their essential nature. This is the metaphysical foundation of Jain Ahimsa. Every living being carries a divine soul equal in its intrinsic nature to every other. Samsara and moksha. The jiva's journey is through samsara until the complete elimination of karma makes moksha possible. In moksha, the jiva rises to the top of the universe and remains there in infinite bliss and omniscience, never returning to the cycle. Karma in Jain, understanding the most complete karma theory. The Jain theory of karma is the most detailed and most mechanically precise karma theory in any tradition, specifying 8 types of karma, each with specific functions, specific durations, and specific conditions for their exhaustion. Unlike Hindu karma or Buddhist karma, Jain karma is treated as a specific category of subtle physical matter that literally adheres to the soul. The 8 types of karma. Ghatiya karma. 1. Gnanvarniya karma. Knowledge obscuring karma obscures the soul's inherent omniscience. The greater the knowledge obscuring karma, the less knowledge the being has. 2. Darshanavanya karma. Perception obscuring karma obscures the soul's inherent infinite perception. 3. Mohaniya karma. Delusion producing karma, the most important and most dangerous type. Mohaniya karma produces delusion about the nature of the soul and about what constitutes right conduct. It is the root of all the other karma's accumulation. 4. Antaraya karma, obstruction karma, creates obstacles to the exercise of the soul's inherent infinite power, particularly to giving, receiving, and enjoyment. Agtya karma, 5, nam karma, body determining karma, determines the specific form, body type, and physical characteristics of the next birth. 6. Gotra karma, status determining karma, determines the social and family status of the birth. 7. Ayusha karma, lifespan karma, determines the duration of the next life. 8. Vednya karma, feeling producing karma, determines the types of pleasure and pain experienced in the life. Ahimsa, the foundational cosmological principle. Ahimsa is the foundational principle of Jainism, and in the Jain tradition, it is not merely an ethical recommendation or a social contract. It is the direct practical application of the Jain metaphysical recognition that every living being is a soul equal in its intrinsic nature to every other soul, including one's own. Violence toward any being is therefore simultaneously a moral wrong and a practical error. The scope of Jain Ahimsa. Jain Ahimsa is the most extensive in scope of any tradition. It extends to every human being, every animal, every plant, every microorganism, and even beings in other planes of existence. No other tradition extends Ahimsa as consistently or as completely. The 5 forms of violence in Jain ethics. Sthulahimsa, the direct, intentional taking of life, murder, hunting, deliberate destruction of any living being. This is the most obvious form and the easiest to avoid. Sukshmahimsa, the indirect harm caused by one's lifestyle choices, the farming practices that kill soil organisms, the products made through exploitative labor, the food choices that require the killing of complex animals. The Jain layperson's practice focuses heavily on minimizing Sukshmahimsa. Mansahimsa, violent thoughts toward any being, hatred, resentment, contempt. The most difficult to eliminate because it is internal and often unconscious. Vachnahimsa, harsh speech, insult, the use of language to wound. The Jain emphasis on careful, measured, kind speech is rooted in the recognition that verbal violence is genuine violence. Kriyahimsa, harm caused through one's work and economic activity, the farmer who plows, the businessman who exploits, the professional whose work causes harm. Jain laypersons are traditionally guided toward occupations that minimize this form. Anekantavada, the many-sidedness of truth. Anekantavada is Jainism's philosophical doctrine that no single perspective can capture the whole truth about any reality, that every object of knowledge has infinite aspects, that every statement about reality is true only from a specific perspective, and that the most honest and most accurate approach to knowledge involves the simultaneous acknowledgement of multiple valid perspectives rather than the insistence on any single perspective as exclusively true. The blind scholars and the elephant. The most famous illustration, 6 blind scholars each touch a different part of an elephant. Each reports their finding. It is a wall, a rope, a tree trunk, a fan, a spear, a snake. Each is accurate about their specific experience. Each is wrong to claim their experience is the complete truth. The whole elephant is most accurately described by holding all 6 perspectives simultaneously. Syadvada, the 7 predications. Anekantavada is formalized in Syadvada, a 7-fold logical system for making accurate statements about reality. 1. Syad asti, in some respect, it is 2. Syad nasti, in some respect, it is not 3. Syad asti nasti, in some respect, it both is and is not 4. Syad avaktavya, in some respect, it is indescribable 5. Syad asti avaktavya, in some respect, it is and is indescribable 6. Syad nasti avaktavya, in some respect, it is not and is indescribable 7. Syad asti nasti avaktavya, in some respect, it both is and is not and is indescribable. The practical significance, Syadvada is not relativism, it is not saying that all claims are equally valid. It is saying that every claim is valid from its specific perspective and limited by that perspective, and that the honest thinker qualifies their statements within some respect to acknowledge this limitation. This produces profound epistemic humility without collapsing into the position that no knowledge is possible. Connection to haligricity. Anekantavada, the philosophical recognition that no single perspective captures the complete truth about any reality, and that the most accurate knowledge requires the simultaneous acknowledgement of multiple valid perspectives, is the most formally developed ancient philosophical framework for what Haligricity does with the world's sacred traditions. Every PDF in the Haligricity library is an Anekantavada exercise, the recognition that the Yoruba perspective on Ashe and the Chinese perspective on Qi and the Druidic perspective on Waifa are all partial and valid perspectives on the same reality, and that Haligricity's synthesis is the attempt to hold the elephant whole. This is not eclecticism or relativism, it is the most philosophically rigorous available approach to the question of truth across traditions. Naivada, the doctrine of partial perspectives. Naivada is the epistemological complement to Anekantavada. Where Anekantavada addresses the nature of reality, Naivada addresses the nature of knowledge claims. The 7 Nayas, types of valid partial perspectives. Nagma Naya, understanding something in terms of its purpose or goal, he is cooking. Valid as a teleological description. Sangraha Naya, understanding something in terms of its genus or collection, this is matter. Valid at the collective level. Vyavhara Naya, the conventional, practical understanding, how things appear and function in ordinary experience. Valid for practical purposes. Rijasutra Naya, understanding something in terms of only the present moment, ignoring past and future states. Valid for immediate, instantaneous description. Shabdanaya, understanding something in terms of its grammatical or verbal characteristics, the standpoint of linguistic analysis. Sambhirdhanaya, understanding something strictly by the etymology of the word used to describe it. Evam Bhutanaya, understanding something only in terms of its actual current activity. A knife is a cutter only when it is currently cutting. The practical lesson: every intellectual and spiritual disagreement can be analyzed through Naivada, asking which Naya each position is operating from and recognizing that both may be valid partial perspectives on a reality that neither fully captures. Aparigraha, non-possession as liberation from wanting. Aparigraha is the fifth of the Jain great woes, and for the Jain tradition it is not merely a practical ethical constraint but a specific spiritual technology for loosening the karma-generating power of desire and attachment that most fundamentally chains the soul to the cycle of rebirth. The Digambara expression. The Digambara sect of Jainism expresses Aparigraha in its most complete available form. The fully initiated Digambara monk owns nothing at all, not even clothing. The sky is their only covering. They eat from their cupped hands, not from a ball, which would be a possession. They sleep on the floor of their host's home. They carry nothing, own nothing, have nothing to protect or lose. This is not poverty or deprivation in the ordinary sense. It is the complete freedom that comes from having eliminated the entire apparatus of wanting and having that defines ordinary human consciousness. Aparigraha at different levels. For Digambara monks, complete non-possession, no clothing, no ball, no possessions of any kind. For Shvetambara monks and nuns, minimal possessions, white robes, a begging bowl, a broom, a mohapati. Each item is functional and non-additional. For Jain laypersons, the practice of setting a specific limit on one's wealth accumulation, I will not own more than X amount. Beyond that limit, the surplus is given away. This is not philanthropy for social approval. It is the recognition that attachment to wealth is a specific karma-generating activity, and that liberation requires the progressive loosening of the grip of wanting. Aparigraha and material possessions in daily life. The Jain layperson is not required to be poor. The Jain community has historically been successful in trade and commerce. What is required is non-attachment, owning things without being owned by them, having resources without being defined by having them. The 5 great woes Mahavrathas, the complete ethical architecture. The 5 Mahavrathas, complete treatment. Ahimsa, non-harm to any living being in thought, word, and deed, in its full Jain scope extending to microorganisms. The most fundamental vow, all others support and enable it. Satya, speaking only what is true, beneficial, measured, and kind. The Jain understanding of truth connects to Anekantavada. Truthful speech acknowledges the limitations of one's own perspective rather than claiming absolute certainty. Asteya, not taking what has not been given, including not accepting more resources than is appropriate. For monks, accepting food and shelter only when explicitly offered. For laypersons, honest dealing in all commercial and personal transactions. Brahmacharya, for monks and nuns, complete celibacy. For laypersons, fidelity within marriage and restraint outside it. The vow is understood not as a rejection of sexuality, but as the channeling of the life force away from sense gratification towards spiritual liberation. Aparigraha, the complete or limited renunciation of attachment to possessions, as appropriate to the practitioner's level of commitment. For Digambara monks, complete nudity. For Shvetambara monks, minimal possessions. For laypersons, the self-imposed limits of Ichha Parinam. Sallekna, the sacred fast unto death. Sallekna is the Jain practice of the voluntary fast unto death, the deliberate, gradual, meditative withdrawal from food and water as a way of consciously completing the current life and discharging the maximum possible karma in the process of dying. It is the most distinctively Jain of all practices and the most frequently misunderstood. What Sallekna is and is not. Sallekna, complete understanding. What it is, a voluntary, gradual, meditative process of fasting that is undertaken only by someone who has reached the end of their productive life, when the body can no longer be used for spiritual practice, when illness or age has made continued productive living impossible, and when the practitioner has settled all outstanding obligations. What it is not, suicide in the ordinary sense. The tradition explicitly distinguishes Sallekna from suicide on these grounds. Suicide is motivated by passion and generates karma. Sallekna is motivated by the desire for liberation and performed in a state of equanimity and detachment that generates no karma. The goal of Sallekna is to exit the body consciously, without the karmic accumulation that accompanies violent death. The prerequisites. Sallekna is not available to anyone at any time. The tradition specifies that it requires the completion of all obligations, the consent of the community, the absence of fear, passion, or grief as motivating factors, and the genuine impossibility of continued productive spiritual practice. The practice. The process is gradual, weeks or months of progressive reduction in food and water intake, accompanied by continuous meditation, prayer, and the review and release of attachments. The practitioner is surrounded by the religious community throughout. The historical record. Multiple Jain masters throughout history have undertaken Sallekna. It is documented in Jain texts and in some cases in external historical records. The practice continues in the contemporary Jain community, though rarely. Part 20. Paryushan and Samvatsari, the annual sacred period, and universal forgiveness. Paryushan is the most sacred period in the Jain calendar, occurring in the month of Bhadrapada. It is a period of intensified spiritual practice, extended fasting, extended study, extended meditation, the most concentrated available period of spiritual labor in the Jain year. Paryushan, the complete practice. The 8 or 10 days, each day of Paryushan has a specific focus, a specific quality or virtue to contemplate and practice. For the Digambara Das Lakshana, the 10 days focus on Uttama Kshama, Uttama Mardva, Uttama Arjava, Uttama Shocha, Uttama Satya, Uttama Samayam, Uttama Tapa, Uttama Tyaga, Uttama Akinkanya, and Uttam Brahmacharya. Extended fasting. Many Jains undertake extended fasts during Paryushan, from single-day fasts to 8-day or even month-long fasts. The fasting is not mortification, it is the deliberate withdrawal of energy from physical maintenance towards spiritual practice. The Samvatsari Pratikraman, the most important single ceremony of the Jain year, the comprehensive review of the past year's violations of the 5 vows, performed by both monks and laypersons. The Pratikraman is a specific ritual of confession and repentance that can last several hours. Samvatsari, Micchami Dukkadam, the final day of Paryushan is Samvatsari, the day of universal forgiveness. Every Jain practitioner seeks forgiveness from every being they may have harmed in the past year, knowingly or unknowingly, and extends forgiveness to every being who may have harmed them. The formula, Micchami Dukkadam, may all the evil I have done be undone. If I have offended you in any way, in thought, word, or deed, I ask for your forgiveness. The scope. The forgiveness sought is not only from humans. It is from every living being harmed in the past year. Every step may have crushed microorganisms. Every breath may have harmed airborne creatures. Samvatsari acknowledges the comprehensive entanglement of all life in the web of living and sincerely seeks its resolution. Jain cosmology, the universe without a creator. Jain cosmology is one of the most detailed and most distinctive in any tradition, and its most defining characteristic is the one it shares with Buddhism and with modern scientific cosmology. There is no creator God. The universe is eternal, uncreated, and self-regulating. The Tirthankaras do not create or sustain the universe, they have transcended it. The universe operates according to its own natural laws without requiring a divine superintendent. The Jain universe, structure and scale. The Loka, the Jain universe is shaped like a cosmic being standing with their feet apart, broader at the middle and narrower at top and bottom. It is finite but vast. The three realms, Adholoka, 7 levels of infernal regions where souls experiencing the consequences of extreme negative karma are born. Madhyaloka, the middle realm, where human beings, animals, and plants exist. The human realm is the only realm from which liberation is possible. Urdhvaloka, multiple levels of celestial realms where divine beings exist in various degrees of bliss. Above all the celestial realms is the Siddhaloka. The Siddhaloka, the crescent-shaped realm at the very top of the universe, the dwelling place of the liberated souls. The Siddhs remain here in infinite bliss and omniscience forever, neither acting in the world nor being acted upon by it. The cosmic cycles, time operates in infinite cycles of ascent and descent, each lasting billions of years. We are currently in a descending half-cycle, a period in which the moral and spiritual condition of the world gradually deteriorates. The last Tirthankar of this cycle, Mahavir, appeared near the beginning of this descending half. No more Tirthankars will appear until the next ascending half-cycle. Gandhi and Jain influence on the world. Mohandas Gandhi's explicit acknowledgement of Jain influence on his philosophy of non-violent resistance makes Jainism the tradition with arguably the most consequential direct influence on 20th century history of any ancient tradition. Through Gandhi, Jain Ahimsa influenced the Indian independence movement, and through Gandhi's documented influence on Martin Luther King Jr. and Nelson Mandela, Jain Ahimsa influenced the American civil rights movement and the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa. The Jain-Gandhi connection. Rajchandra Raichand Bhai, Gandhi's most important spiritual teacher, was a Jain scholar and businessman. Rajchandra Raichand Bhai, a Jain mystic of extraordinary learning who corresponded with Gandhi extensively during Gandhi's years in South Africa. Gandhi wrote, "Of all the people who influenced me, Raichand Bhai influenced me more than anyone else who." Ahimsa and Satyagraha. Gandhi took Jain Ahimsa and developed it into Satyagraha, the force of truth, the method of non-violent resistance. The direct line from Jain Ahimsa through Gandhi's Satyagraha to King's non-violent civil rights strategy to Mandela's negotiated transition is one of the most significant ethical transmission chains in modern history. Aparigraha and Gandhi's lifestyle. Gandhi's deliberate simplicity, the homespun cloth, the minimal possessions, the self-limitation of wants, is directly influenced by Jain Aparigraha. His ashram life embodied Jain principles in a political and social context. Anekantavada and Gandhi's pluralism. Gandhi's respect for all religious traditions, his insistence that truth is not owned by any single tradition, reflects the influence of Jain Anekantavada. His prayer meetings included hymns from Hindu, Muslim, Christian, and Sikh traditions. The Halichricity lends Anekantavada and Ahimsa as practice. Jainism's contribution to Halichricity is philosophically foundational and practically radical. Anekantavada provides the most formally complete philosophical framework for the synthesis approach that Halichricity employs. Ahimsa provides the ethical orientation through which the Halichricity practitioner relates to every tradition in the library. Anekantavada and the Halichricity synthesis. Every guide in the Halichricity library is an act of Anekantavada. The recognition that the Yoruba understanding of Ashe and the Zoroastrian understanding of Asha and the Chinese understanding of Qi and the Druidic understanding of Nuifa are all partial and valid perspectives on the same sacred reality, and that holding them simultaneously produces a more complete picture than any single perspective, is Sadvada applied to the world's sacred traditions. The Syat that qualifies every Jain philosophical statement is the epistemic humility that every sincere engagement with another tradition requires. Ahimsa and the practitioner's relationship to other traditions. Jain Ahimsa, applied to the practitioner's relationship with other sacred traditions, means no tradition is dismissed, diminished, distorted, or treated as inferior to one's own primary tradition. Each is approached with the same respect and care one would bring to a living being deserving of non-harm. This is the ethical foundation of Halichricity synthesis, not merely tolerance or curiosity, but the specific active commitment to non-harm in every engagement with every tradition's specific sacred content. Connection to Halichricity. Micchami Dukkadam. May all the evil I have done be undone. Every time Haligricity engages with the tradition, every guide in this library, the Jain principle of Ahimsa and Anekantavada is operative. The commitment not to harm the tradition through misrepresentation, not to appropriate its most sacred elements without acknowledgement, not to flatten its complexity into the convenient, and to hold its specific partial truth with the genuine epistemic humility that Sadvada demands. The marble is carved so finely at Dilwara that the stone looks like lace. The 1,444 pillars at Rankapur are each different. The 900 temples at Palitana cover an entire mountain. This is what it looks like when a tradition takes the sacred as seriously as Jainism does. Grand Rising. Micchami Dukkadam. May all the evil I have done be undone. The Jain formula of universal forgiveness, spoken on Samvatsari. Every living being carries a divine soul. The jiva of the microorganism crushed underfoot is, in its intrinsic nature, equal to the jiva of the Tirthankar. Ahimsa is the practical application of this recognition. Anekantavada is its epistemological companion, the recognition that no single perspective, including mine, captures the whole. These two together are among the most precise available tools for the Haligric practitioner navigating a library of sacred traditions whose combined truth is greater than any one of them. Grand Rising. Personal Reading Series Haligricity, IUQ, Productions, May 2026.